What you're looking at is an ISO certified 200-meter water-resistant dive watch. Not only that, but its solar movement means it'll be more accurate than even your typical quartz. And not having to change the battery every couple years means not having to potentially compromise that water resistance. This is the dive watch from Citizen's Promaster collection. This is the Citizen model number BN015109L. At the time of this video, you can pick this watch up at Amazon for $209 US, the same price as Joma Shop. You can also pick this watch up directly from Citizen for $300 US. Hey everyone, welcome back to Eric's Everyday Watches. As always, if you like this video, if you find it helpful, please do me a favor, hit the like button and consider subscribing. The packaging it comes in is easily the best packaging of the week. Inside of the standard black box with the Citizen logo on top, we have the real showstopper. This air tank display with a Promaster name and logo printed on the outside. Now, it's all plastic, but the main portion has been painted a dull metallic color, and the top portion, while still plastic, does look like it could be chrome. Overall, it has a solid feel to it, and thankfully, it is not flimsy. It goes without saying that this is absolutely a case that everybody is going to hang on to. Now, this air tank display is roughly 4 inches by 4 inches and 7.5 inches in height when closed. When it is fully opened, it is roughly 10 inches tall. Sliding the top portion up, we have the watch itself presented on a black foam pillow. Now, the only way this display could get any cooler is if the top levers actually rotated and somehow dispensed beer, or whatever your favorite beverage may be. This watch has a sporty, attractive appearance with the case being made out of 316 stainless steel. The diameter is larger than it appears and comes in at 44 millimeters. For a lug-to-lug distance, we have 49 millimeters, due in part to the short lugs that are on this watch. The watch has mostly a brushed finish to it, with the exception being a small area on the case back. Now, the brushing is very nicely done and appears uniform throughout. All of the edges and corners have been smoothed over and there are no sharp areas to be found. The shape of the case itself seems to go exceptionally well with the brushed finishing and reflects just the right amount of light for a dive watch. And by that I mean the way that the top of the case angles in where it meets the aluminum insert. And then on bottom of the case it has this shallow angle where it meets up with the screw down case back. And this shallow angle continues onto the bottom of the lugs. That outer section of the case back is the only polished area on this watch, and it looks rather smart next to that brushed angle. The lugs themselves are rather short and an estimated 8 millimeters, which explains how you have a 49 millimeter lug-to-lug with a 44 millimeter case. Now, those short lugs also help to keep this watch very wearable. I had no problem wearing this watch on my 7-inch wrist and expect people with a slightly smaller wrist would be fine too. On back of the watch, there is a screw-down case back with, quite honestly, a lot of text going on. While the typography is decent, if there is one area on this watch that could visually be improved, it would be the case back due to the amount of text included. And that text includes stainless steel, Citizen Watch Company, Diver's Watch 200 meters, GN4S, Japan movement, the serial number, the movement number, the case number, anti-mag 4800, do not open, service center repair only, and finally, the Citizen EcoDrive logo and globe icon. And for all of you who lost count, that was 11 pieces of information. Moving on, inside that case we have Citizen's EcoDrive solar movement, and that is the E168. It has 6 months of power reserve, an accuracy of plus or minus 15 seconds a month, a frequency of 32,768 Hz, and a low charge warning letting you know when the watch needs to be exposed for more light. This watch has a signed crown with the Promaster logo at the 4 o'clock position, and it is 6 millimeters in width and 5 millimeters in depth, which seems appropriate. It is easy enough to grab and pull out without being too large. This is a screw-down crown as you would expect with a watch having 200 meters of water resistance. Pulling it out to the first position sets the date, while pulling it out to the second position stops the second hand and sets the time. Now let's take a look at the face of the watch, starting with this unidirectional 60-click bezel. It has good action and little to no backplay. It's very easy to grip and turns with a satisfying low-tone audible click. There is a series of 5 notches carved in around the bezel at 6 different locations, which adds a sense of sportiness and visually looks intriguing. These notches echo the wave pattern found in the strap near the lugs and give the entire watch a more upscale, well-designed vibe. The dark blue aluminum insert includes a loomed pip at the 12 o'clock position, as well as Arabic numbers at the 10-minute marks, and everything seems to line up nicely. Inside of that, we have a white minute track printed directly on the dark blue chapter ring. And inside of that, we have indices which appear to be either printed directly on the dial or perhaps embossed, but either way they are not applied. They are, however, outlined with a metallic treatment. Now there are round indices most of the way around the dial, with the 4 compass points having a 5-sided indice. The dark blue dial with its loomed indices outlined in silver definitely looks sharp and is very attractive. At the 12 o'clock position, we have the Citizen logo printed directly on the dial. And further down at the 6 o'clock position, we see the words Eco Drive and Divers 200 meters. The date at the 4 o'clock position is printed black on white, with the window itself surrounded by a white outline. Now this being a solar watch, of course, means that the date window is set further behind the dial than a normal quartz, and thus tends to make legibility slightly more difficult because of shadows and the viewing angles. In my everyday use, I did find that to be the issue here. While the font is large enough and has enough contrast, it is just the viewing angles and the fact that the date window is set further in that made seeing the date at times a challenge. The hands on this watch are nice and large, making for absolutely no issues with legibility here. I love the way this hour hand is outlined with a metallic silver treatment and that line dividing the lower half down the center. Not to be outdone, the minute hand offers the only pop of color on this watch and just happens to be my favorite color, so thank you, Citizen, for that. The white colored second hand continues this beautiful color scheme and again offers a high amount of contrast. Unfortunately, it does stop about 2 millimeters short of meeting the minute track, and that's a shame because it does hit those markers dead on the entire way around the dial. The loom on the dial is blue, while the loomed pip on the bezel is a green color. Both are quick to activate when exposed to light. Now during my everyday loom test, and by that I mean I wore the watch for an entire day, left it by my bed at night, and looked over between 4 and 5 in the morning, I found that this loom does last all night. Topping off that dial, we have a flat piece of mineral crystal with an anti-reflective coating. Now with a price point slightly north of $200 US, a case could be made for sapphire crystal here. But keep in mind, mineral glass is less likely to break or to shatter than sapphire. And the last thing you want to happen if you're actually diving is for your watch to break. The polyurethane strap is 20 millimeters wide at the lugs and 5 millimeters thick. It does flare out to 23 millimeters just outside of the lugs, giving a bit more of a presence. It tapers down to 18 millimeters wide and 3 millimeters thick at the last adjustment hole. The strap looks fantastic with the dark blue color pairing with the blue dial and the bezel insert. The wavy pattern molded into it, along with the perforated series of holes, makes this watch look ready for action. Unfortunately, in my everyday use, I just did not find it to be very comfortable. it's a bit stiff, and more than once I had difficulties bending it enough to slip underneath the keepers. I also felt that the stiffness of the strap actually stopped the watch from sitting down well onto my wrist like it should have. Now, the strap might hold up extremely well in water and might last for years. Just be aware that if you're thinking of this watch as your daily driver, you might want to invest in a different strap. Last thing to note about this strap is that the stainless steel buckle does have the same brushed finish to it, but it is not signed. So let's list out the specs for this watch. We have a mineral crystal, the E168 Eco Drive movement, a diameter of 44 millimeters, a thickness of 12 millimeters, a lug width of 20 millimeters, and a lug-to-lug distance of 49 millimeters. And finally, let's wrap up by going over the pros and cons. For pros, aesthetically, it has a fantastic color scheme and a unique shaped indices. The time is very legible. You get the Eco Drive movement. You get 200 meters of water resistance, which is ISO certified. The loom does last all night. The fit and finish is top notch, and the bezel aligns with no back play. For cons, the strap is just stiff and uncomfortable, and the date window can be hard to read at certain angles. So my final thoughts on this watch: for around $230 US, you're getting a watch with some very impressive functionality, and it is a very stylish watch on top of that, with only one main drawback: the strap. Now, I would say aside from that strap, this Promaster Dive watch is a real steal. This has been Eric from Eric's Everyday Watches, reminding you to buy the watch that you love, and don't pay any attention to what anybody else says or thinks. This is your watch collection. If you like this video, if you find it helpful in any way, please do me a favor, hit the like button and consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next video.